Hello everyone, this is part 41 of What If Naruto Got Lost During His Training TS, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Then there were those few mages that remembered their training, their lessons in gravity manipulation. Using this knowledge they held the golems in place, while some others either dropped chunks of debris on the unsuspecting golems, or forcibly crushed them with pressure, air pressure and the like, until all that was left were dust particles. Once the fighting had ended, the troops were rewarded by the sight of the crystallized chakra that powered the golems. They had found something of note. Collecting all the pieces, and due to the battle and brutality of the golems, they discovered that there were some defective ones still hidden underground. There were even some that had stopped halfway out of the ground. Fortunately for the invaders, these others had not activated properly. Had they joined the fray, the Rosuto forces would have to deal with a lot more things, and would have probably lost more lives in the process of escape. The golems only looked human, but they were huge monstrosities. Had there been more than 100 of the things running around, then the Rosuto forces were sure to not have the ability to even fight back. While the first group made their way to the designated meeting point, the second group were busy having the time of their lives as well. Their base happened to be full of inmates, meaning that their target was none other than a prison. The prisoners being people that were against Orochimaru, the former daimyo, test subjects, some failed test subjects, pathetic experiments, and simply people that had yet to be used by Orochimaru in any way at all. The local guard was the best find that they could encounter in the whole facility. Not only was she against Orochimaru, but she was also a sensor, a chakra sensor, one with the ability to track people down with by the flow of their chakra, that and help others regain their lost chakra. The Nufu assigned to the group had received some information from the first group. The second group had arrived just after the first group had left the site of their target. As the second group was still in their planning stage, and had yet to move to engage, or whatever they decided to call it, their target, they were able to send out some of the troops to survey the surrounding area for any traps of any kind. It was truly a better safe than sorry strategy. After a weeks of searching, scanning, and scouring the surrounding area, no one was able to find anything that was in any way truly hostile or would be a danger to the Rosuto group. As they knew that the base was a prison facility, they sent in the wolves to assess the inside. Accompanying them would be some of the Nufu, so that there would be some form of communication between the infiltration squad and the outside troops. Getting in was easy, hiding in plain sight was also easy. The infiltrators took note of the number of cells that they had found, the number of rooms that there were, and the number of prisoners that could be seen still alive in the place. There were so many of them, not all of them looked anywhere near being worthy of staying in such a hellhole. They knew that sooner or later they would be found out, but that was the reason why only the Nufu were sent to go with the expeditionary force of direwolves. After a few hours, one of the teams was found out. An alarm was sounded and some of the prisoners were given the choice of fighting the intruders or simply S. The warden was still under the impression that Orochimaru would be coming to see how things were doing. She was not aware of the intentions of the intruders, and the prisoners, the ones that were let out of their cells, couldn't care less as the only thing on their mind was survival. Nufu Yamada here, we need backup, we've been found, the wolves are holding out as good as they can, but even the wolves big as they are won't be able to last much longer, the communications guy of the spotted team reported to the troops outside. The troops reacted instantly to the report. Gathering their armaments, they rushed into the facility, armed to the teeth with paralyzing substances and weapons. They were going in for the K, not literally, as they needed the people to talk and to choose a side. Rosuto or death. They struck the first blow. Neutrality was no longer an option. As they entered the building, they simply began their attack once they found a target. Grabbing onto a wolf, some of the soldiers were able to move a whole lot faster, and hit more prisoners than they would have been able to while running on foot. The Nufu members coordinated with one another, leading the second wave of Rosuto troops around the base. When all was said and done, the Rosuto forces had captured all of the prisoners, and had brought them out into the world, where they summarily tied them all up into bunches, and waited for whatever concoctions they used on them to wear out. Then once people started waking up, and regaining the use of the bodily functions, they were fed some real food, and the like. They were brought back to near peak condition with the aid of the mages and the medics in the group. They needed to be sane, coherent and able to make decisions that they would stick with, as those would determine whether they lived or they SD. It took around 2 weeks for all the prisoners along with their warden to get back into some manner of what could be considered as good shape. Some had to be slapped awake for some reason, but all in all they were all awake and ready to make the decision that would either let them live or kill them, or both depending on future actions and choices. We are members of the Rosuto no Kuni army, and you lot have a choice to make. The officer of the unit spoke out clearly, either chose to join our ranks or join Orochimaru or Hai no Kuni. To clarify the difference between the two choices is this, another officer decided to elaborate or explain, either you join us in our quest for the destruction of Orochimaru and the further humiliation and possible destruction of Hai no Kuni, or join one of those two and well I'm sure a number of you get the picture. Yes, either way. One of the prisoners shouted. You're just going to use us. Another one shouted. Either side is a fight waiting to happen. What kind of choice is that? Choice. I see what you're trying to do, you want us to either serve you, remain prisoners or one aetical prisoner stated. At least we're letting you choose whether or not to join us, one of the Rosuto soldiers said. Letting us. You are forcing us in making our decision, one of the prisoners said. Fine, you want to think of it that way then you can just. One of the soldiers whose patience was growing thin was interrupted before he could finish his sentence. Incoming transmission from the southern front. Nufu Iro called out, all attention being directed at him. This is Nufu Kira, the southern front is ours. I repeat, the southern front is ours. Hai has lost a fourth of its sum total of power. Cheers met the proclamation. Some of the soldiers lost their impatience and simply cheered due to the victory of the forces led by the daimyo himself. Second, Konoha has fallen, but there is still some resistance left within. Get in here. Kira stated, the western front is still at it, and the eastern movement has yet to land. What? One of the soldiers said, what about the northern border? Any word on that part? Hai is losing ground, while Orochimaru is gaining. You guys better get there fast before the snake man makes it to the root of the problem before Rosuto-sama does. We're still making some last-minute decision-making over here, one of the officers said. Well, move it, just get to at least the border, Kira said, then asked, do you lot know how the Tokages are faring? I've contacted the other groups and there is no word. Base camp is out of range for some reason. Last we heard base camp was moving south. Silence is the word, no need to be spotted. They're moving slowly in plain sight, the officer in charge informed the elder. Well, as soon as you know of their condition contact us over here, Kira commanded, southern front over and out. Once the transmission ended the Rosuto troops faced the prisoners once again. We'll make it easier, one of the soldiers said, join up with us, and in the future gain the possibility of simply walking away once the fighting ends, or join our enemies and see where that takes you. So it's join up or either way we lose. If you chose to join Orochimaru or Hai no Kuni, we will permit you to do so, but while you are still not committed to their side, but while you are still in the position that you in right now, no harm shall befall any of you. Had we wanted to we could have just blown up the prison and killed all of you, the officer in charge informed the group of prisoners. More than half of the prisoners decided to join the Rosuto forces including the warden. They were better off with people that had actually helped them get back on their feet in a way, than join the army of a madman that cared not for their well-being, or a country that did not bother to rescue them from their hell. These men and women that chose life were given some more comfortable clothes as well as some weapons to use in battle, as well as the standard first aid kit. These new recruits were led away in the direction of the hidden village, while the wolves were left with those that had chosen the other side. I'll be unbinding you, as you have now chosen the side you wish to be on. It was your choice. Once your bindings are removed you are free to go to your new masters, a lone mage in the area said. The wolves hidden in the shadows are waiting their turn. When the binds have fallen you will be the enemies of Rosuto, be happy with your choice. After the mage left them, the bindings did not come off. Some of them believed that they were being left for and while some of the shinobi sensed for the lone mage, and found that he was walking away and catching up with the rest of their unit. Looks like those soldiers really aren't going to come after us, one of the shinobi said. I can't sense any hidden humans around. I can't either, but do you think we've been left to here? Another asked. Probably, but that one guy said, Another said, but didn't get to finish his statement as the ties that bound them came off. Well, what do you know? We're free to go, it's not our war, we get to go our own way now. Before anyone else could say anything, they heard growls coming from the shadows around them. Soon the growls were accompanied by yellow eyes in the darkness, and since it was already dark, night had already set, there was no way for them to tell what was making that sound. They were so focused on the humans, that they failed to notice the wolves that were members of the army. They were not soldiers, but they were still Rosuto citizens. The promise was that they would be treated as the enemy, yet no harm would befall them as long as they remained tied. Once freed from bondage, they were free to go where they wished. But who said that life was fair, and that such things were easy? It was like learning how to run. First one had to learn how to roll before anything else. There were many steps, there were many obstacles in the way of progress. These former prisoners simply had to get away from the horse-sized wolves that were prowling the night, waiting for the perfect chance to strike. Some of the former prisoners decided that they were better off without the rest of the group, so they ran into the darkness, never to be heard from again. While some others decided to run back into the familiar surroundings of the prison, a place which would soon become their final resting places. While a bunch of them decided that there was safety in numbers and just stayed together in a group. The growls suddenly stopped, the night grew silent, not a single sound could be heard, not even a cricket. None of the humans knew what to expect, as they knew that in any area with a lot of vegetation it was unusual to find such a quiet place. An explosion lit up the night sky, and the shockwave forced the people to drop to the ground. The explosion came from behind them, where once there was a prison, now there was nothing. The whole underground had come crashing down on all of those that had chosen to stay inside. Then the first blood-curdling scream was heard, echoing in the darkness, followed by another, and another. The final straw was when an arm fell from the sky, all bruised in the place that it had been separated from its body. It fell on the head of one of the grouped prisoners. It didn't fall down hard, but it fell. The person was knocked on his or her back. Feeling around, the person grasped the arm, and brought it to eye level. Realizing what it was, as well as finally getting what kind of predicament they were in, the former prisoner screamed. Upon hearing the scream come from within the group of people, the wolves rushed out of their hiding places and sped into the grouped humans, tearing limb from limb, shattering and breaking bones. Blood flew everywhere, covering the ground in a crimson sheet, and the air being permeated by the stench of blood, gore, and death. The rocks high above like vultures waiting for their turn, and at the same time like other birds of prey swooping down and taking apart those that had chosen to run. There were a few crocs waiting for some runners to try and cross nearby rivers, catching those that dared with their jaws, clamping down, and halving the humans even before a scream could escape them. Once daybreak hit, nothing was left in the area. There was absolutely no trace of anyone having SD there. The shadows did another cleaning job. They swallowed up any of the remains that the beasts were unable to digest. Every evidence of their having been there had been swallowed up by the shadows right before dawn arrived. They also had the pleasure of sending all the beasts back to their respective units, clean of any organic matter that did not belong to them. The third group found a base, though not underground. It was situated as a village that posed as a bunch of farms. The technology that Orochimaru had been studying there was mostly about food, ingestible material that could prove problematic to people when swallowed. So, not food exactly, more like slow-acting, and nigh undetectable poisoning. Food poisoning. The man was a snake. Snake venom normally came from a bite which is done with a mouth. The snake man decided that he would be using the mouths of people, their hunger against them. His Stus figured out how to make the poison do what he wanted it to do. What he didn't figure out was how to make people need the extra food. The snake man did not need to further survey the study, as he had his lesser henchmen do the Stus for him. The initial intelligence that the scouts had provided stated that the village scientists had found a way around the making people starve first problem. They had found a way to spread the poisoning. Problem was that it worked so well, that they had managed to infect every living breathing entity in and around the village, excluding rats, insects, and any kind of bird. More recent intelligence reports made by rock riders brought to light were that the village was no longer salvageable. It was the safety of the world at stake, and the third group was unlucky enough to be the ones that would save the world. They needed advice, therefore they contacted the main force. Oto Invasion Group 3, Southern Front, do you read me? A Nufu clansman called over the mirror. I read you loud and clear. What's your situation? Another of the same clan answered. Base 3 infected with sly disease, in need of strategy guidance in dealing with a poisonous zombie population boom, humans and any land animal, save for rats and insects. I'll patch you through to the Science Academy. After several transfers from mirror to mirror, the third group of the rice field front were finally connected to the Science Academy. Rosuto no Kuni Science Academy, how can we help you? Nufu Yori, one of the few female scientists that were of the Nufu clan, specializing in science and science fiction, rather than communication, human resource and development. Yori, it's Tem, third group in the Oto invasion, we've got a Resident Evil scenario, what would you suggest? Nufu Tem said, his sister Yori was on the other end. Seriously, an scenario. Just get us something to do, I'm not the sci-fi addict in the family. Fine, I'll see what I can do, get an update of the situation. While the third group waited, they sent out some aerial scouts to assess the present situation, see how the area was faring, as well as how much of it would have to be razed to the ground. The rocks flew over the area, and what they found was worse than what they had originally found during their first run through. The disease had spread, and the poison spread had evolved and spread, changed, and upgraded into something far worse. Whatever the original protocol the poison followed to spread would remain unknown to the unit, as they did not really care about that, they weren't doctors, they weren't planning on treating it, they planned on destroying it. The plants were infected, and some of them had begun to mutate. The Rock Riders had found a few plants that had grown larger, spewing gas at anything that passed within spewing distance from them. After finding nothing else new, like birds spreading the disease, the Rock Riders decided to return to the base, which was a few hundred feet above sea level. The information was immediately passed on to the communications guys, specifically Tem. Yori, new situation. Tem called out through the mirror. What is it? I was about to piece together something that you could do, Yori said. Mutated plants, and a greater spread, plus a new way of spread, Tem said. Whatever, it doesn't really matter, Yori said. So, napalm the place, the entire area, nuke it, raze it to the ground, scorch the earth, then salt it, Yori said. So, you want us to make the entire place a zone? Tem asked. Pretty much, Yori said, but make sure that the mages put up protective shielding, have them use their imagination, it wouldn't do for you lot to have to be roasted due to negligence. Got it. Group 3 over and out, Tem said. After the mages put up the shields, and scanned for any infected nearby, the unit split up into smaller teams, 2 mages to a team. The Rock Riders once again took to the skies as they would be in charge of guiding the ground troops while they did their scorch the earth thing. Since they were tasked into turning the whole place into a zone, the crocs were made to go to all the water sources and force the water molecules to break down. The process that they used was to dump as much acid as they could spare into the water. The Rock Riders had a second job to do while in the air. They were to drop fire bombs on the land once the ground crew were done cleansing what they could. It was a good thing that the entire area was in the middle of what once was a big crater, probably made by a meteorite that crash-landed there. This is base camp, calling all units, Tem said over the radio. I repeat, calling all units. Rock Riders awaiting orders. The leader of the Rock Riders spoke into his radio. Croc core ready for vaporization. The head diver spoke into his radio. Flame belchers ready, the rest of troops announced. Operation Bleach is a go, Tem said over the radio. I repeat, Operation Bleach is a go. They moved with brutal efficiency, taking out anyone and anything that was no longer human, regular plant, or animal in sight. The rice paddies that surrounded the village too were torched. When the soldiers finally reached the village itself, they torched the place as best as they could. Then got out of there as fast as they could. Rock Riders, drop your load, Anufu ordered, drop your load. Once the fire bombs started falling from the skies, and when they finally hit the ground, the explosions were so strong that even though the sky was clear, people from miles around could see the explosions. The burning and bright blaze was amazingly clear. If people thought that Fire Country had the best when it came to fire, well, they were wrong, as the Rosuto forces were able to superpower some explosives, as well as chakra element-powered explosive shells, and a number of other things. All in all, the scorching of the earth was a success. The only thing remaining to be done was to salt the earth. Mages. An officer called out, have the skies rain salt on the area. Hi, was the response of the mages. When the earth was salted, making sure that no vegetation or any form of life would be able to grow and survive there, the Rosuto forces prepared to move out and head over to the pre-designated meeting place. For one final time, the mages did a scan or sweep of the area for the poison as well as any signs of any remaining possible dispersal methods. Luckily they found none. Unluckily, however, they found something that all the life within the crater was camouflaging. The revelation of what lay beneath the soil caused the Rosuto troops to move quadruple time. They had to get out of there before things got worse. The thing that the mages found was a creature that lived underground and had been infected, but the poison had been neutralized somehow, leaving the creature as non-carrier, but instead had been mutated into something else. The poison had melded with whatever the creature was, which ended with the thing becoming a giant acidic slime monster. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.